Welcome to Fact or Freestyle.
People love Dave Nourie, and they always answer the phone when he calls. When we get him on Zoom, we ask him to confirm rumors.
Let's see how far down the rabbit hole we go. Bikes and the whole 9 yards, right? So I built it up, and I did have it a little bit different because I had a 0 offset forks. So I took the same setup that I had on my Big Daddy, and I just put all the parts on. Took a little while to get adjusted, but I was communicating with Joe Hawk. So Joe Hawk was, you know who that is, right? He's the main guy at Haro now. And so I was messaging him or something, and I just said, yeah, I got the bike in, it's great. And I just did my 5,020th Gumby, according to my Gumby journal. And he's like, and I should find the text, it's classic. He's like, that's so cool that you got a journal. That's awesome. And I don't have a Gumby journal.
You don't have one? You just said that? Oh, I totally believe you.
That was freestyle.
Yeah, so maybe he was lying about the other thing, about the
oh, dang.
Yeah,
it
seems so
I just
casual.
showed my cards. I just showed my hand. No, it was so good though. I got him so good. He was like, oh, that's so great. And then I finally told him at the Worlds, I'm like, yeah, there really is no Gumby journal. Sorry.
Did you pull him aside and be like, hey,
wait, sorry.
No Gumby journal.
Exactly.
Put your arm around him.
It's all right. But I love that, Matt, that you've got, so 10 months. Okay, so now 10 years from now.
Probably be teaching this guy some tricks. Say hi, Zach. Oh, what's up?
Hello, Zach.
What's up, Zach?
Yeah, you can have some goldfish. Hang on, bud.
He's excited about goldfish.
This is why I never want to get like a concrete slab in my backyard. It's like, no, I'm going to my warehouse because I'm going to go ride somewhere.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to go ride somewhere else. So yeah, I don't know. 10 years from now, how old will I be? Let's see. I'll be like 42 then. So something like that.
42?
What? Yeah, I'm not good with math. That's something like that. So, yeah, that might be a freestyle right there. But
yeah, exactly. I'm like, bullshit. I'm calling him out right there.
I don't know. Maybe I'll still be riding. Who knows? Yeah. What's the right answer? I don't think there is a right answer.
No, there's no right answer.
I mean, who knows? Like, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to be doing like next fall because I don't know if virtual shows will still be a thing. I hope they are because like it's amazing now. Like I can ride like more than ever. So.
And you can do it anywhere. Like you can go, you're not, because you were just focusing on the Chicago greater area, which is a lot.
I was trying not to travel. I mean, I was able to fill my calendar just close to home, which is amazing. Sometimes I travel 6 hours here and there, but I would turn down like 2,000 schools a year just based on geography. Like you're in California, you're in New York, like, sorry. And I'm like, yeah. So I don't know, maybe next fall I'll still be doing virtual stuff. And maybe in 10 years, I'll still be, I'll figure out a way to like, just record the riding like now, and then in 10 years I'll be like Krusty the Clown, like, hey kids, Matt Wilhelm here, I've got a good trick for you, here you go. And they'll just think
back in 2020 I was doing
so you can deep fake yourself.
Deep fake myself, that's right. Could do it. So maybe that's what I'll be doing in 10 years, who knows.
Well, and I think the journal, you could document your journal, because as that journal gets shorter, that could be, your list of tricks that you're pulling. It's happening for me for sure. Like I have so many tricks, and guys will say, hey, when was the last time you did a backwards walk around? I did one. I did it in Master Creativity. It was one of my tricks. I did a backwards wheelie bar spin backwards walk around, and I hadn't done that in 30 years, right? But I haven't, it's not like I put it in my routine now. Yeah. That's why the journal is like really kind of a nice way to think about it, because you kind of forget about what
you forget. The worst is when you're like, oh yeah, I learned something new, and then like Ron's like, oh, you did that like 10 years ago. I'm like, oh. It's like I don't like record myself a lot, which I should, but I'm just lazy, and I'm just like, I don't feel like setting up the camera. I never watch it. Yeah. And so like so it's good to write it down, And oh yeah, I know. We were talking earlier about someone doing a trick, and it's like Keo does that blender. He does like a crazy one now, but like a year or two ago, he would do it like blender, and then he would pivot to like a stick B.
Yeah.
And like I learned that in 2004, but I never recorded it, and because I was going to do it in a contest, and I never got around to it. And then he did it. I'm like, I totally forgot about that, and like now that's his trick, and like I can't do it because everyone's going to think that I'm biting him, and like it's fine, you know. But I'm just like, I should have just recorded it. What was I thinking?
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, we'll release this as just like a little Instagram clip just to call ABD on them. I mean, kids got to learn. This happens.
No, don't start it with him. It's like when Michael Jordan got the chip on his shoulder. It's like, don't give him any extra motivation. He's plenty good right now. Like,
Yeah, right. Exactly. Don't motivate him anymore.
What am I doing here? I can't even like, you know, he's got this stuff dialed. I've been doing this trick for 20 years. I still can't pull it every time. It's like, he can do it with his eyes closed. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing too, just to watch. I mean, I feel so fortunate to see from like the very beginning of freestyle and Flatland specifically to what now is happening. Like I saw Moto's, you know, he's got that new indoor space, and the kids that are just killing it, you know, right?
Yeah.
From the beginning, you know, they're just doing such hard tricks.
I was thinking the other day how, you know, how lucky I am I started riding in 92. And when I started in 92, you're like, oh yeah, like there was like old school stuff, but freestyle was like not really old at all at that point. Right. So it's like, you know, it's like in its infancy. And so now I'm like, well, I kind of started like when it was almost in its infancy. If you think about it, like the longer the time span goes out, it's like, yeah, to see it go like all that length, like pretty cool.
Yeah. I didn't know what year that you started, but I think of you as like right at that edge of
so
when.
Dave, do you know why I started riding Flatland specifically? This goes back to your Washington Park
Dean Palacio
freestyle story, which was total BS, by the way. But I wanted to be a BMX racer because in 1992, freestyle was completely dead. And so even before that, like in 90, I saw Hiro Toshida do a trick. The Fast Break Freestyle Trick Team came to do a show at Chicago Ridge Fest in the tennis court. And I remember I had a Hutch Excel. My girlfriend had the Hutch Windstyler, which was a model up. But I had a Hutch Excel, and I had just taken it apart to build a race bike. And I remember watching the freestyle show going, maybe I'll keep my freestyle parts just in case I ever want to get into that. Well, I was at the dirt jumps a lot because we didn't have a track, and I wanted to be a racer. I was like, freestyle is lame. Like, why would you want to do tricks on a bike? And like one of the racers wanted to beat me up because I accidentally scratched his Oakley sunglasses. And so I couldn't show my face at the trails anymore. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm just going to ride Flatland. And that's like how this whole thing started. Because he was selling me a Redline Flight sprocket for $8. And I had the $8 on me, and he didn't have the sprocket on him. And so he's like, well, here, take my Oakley sunglasses as collateral, so you know I'm good for it. So I gave him the $8. He gave me the Oakley sunglasses. So I'm showing these things off for like the next 3 days, whatever. Well, the day I go back up to the trails to give him the sunglasses back, I was handing to my friend Dan O'Brien. We dropped them, and they got scratched on these rocks. And I'm like, that's it. My life is over. And so like, I couldn't, like, he made my life living hell. I couldn't go to the trails anymore and start riding Flatland.
Are you still sponsored by Oakley?
Oh, does that count as me being sponsored by Oakley?
I mean, it started your whole career, Matt. You know?
Thank you, Oakley.
Thank you, Oakley.
Did he ever not give you the sprocket that you paid for?
Oh, I should file a lawsuit here because I never got the sprocket. I never thought of that until right now, 29 years later.
Yeah,
wow.
That's the reason for the show.
And I still remember the date that I started freestyle because it was June 22nd, 1992. Because it's like one of those things that was like implanted in your mind.
Well,
so,
I think he learned his lesson.
Yeah.
So Matt, that reminded me of a story when I was a street rider. Like I wasn't a Flatland rider. I rode San Diego brakeless for years. Like that's what I did. And it was curbs, wheelies. Like rock walk was the first trick that I learned. Then I learned like frame stands and bar hops, you know, and it was all brakeless. Like that's just what we did. And a lot of canyon jumping. And I'd break a lot of parts because I wasn't really that great. I did a lot of the step ups to flat, you know, not like big, we didn't have big doubles and stuff. And so I used to break parts all the time, and my sponsor was my mom, and I broke these forks. And then I went to my mom. I'm like, hey, I just broke these forks, and there's these new ones are $40. You know, could you lend me the money? I really want to keep riding, because you know that's how it is. Like you want to get your bike back running as quickly as possible. So I got these forks, and I think they were the Tangy forks, and they're pretty good forks. But again, I did the same thing. I jumped, I landed flat, both wheels down, snapped the forks. And at this time, Tony Murray and John Peterson, who knew me from riding at the beach, said there's this contest happening in Huntington Beach. And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to go, but I'm not sure if I can do it because I just broke my bike again. I don't have any money and I need forks. So I hit up mom again, and my mom's like, well, we just bought you forks. What are you talking about? And I said, yeah, but I broke those already. She's like, what? We can't, I don't really have the budget. And this is, my mom was single mom raising four boys. She was basically living paycheck to paycheck. So she says, the only way we can do this is we're gonna have to have a family meeting. So my brothers and my mom, we all sat down, and my mom just said, okay, here's the deal. We have $100 and something left in our checking account. And this is how much food we have left. David needs forks to go up to this contest. Whatever food that's left in the cupboards and fridge, we're gonna have to eat for the rest of the week until payday.
Hey everybody, so here's the time. This is when we're gonna come in and do the Flatland Fuel $20 gift certificate giveaway. There's gonna be a code that flashes on the screen. Go, write this down and go immediately to Flatland Fuel. Buy something, enter this code. It will be a total pain in the ass. It's like 20 characters long. Go ahead and get your money and buy some bike parts from Flatland Fuel because they're sponsoring the show now.
And so my brothers, without even a question, like, buy the forks. And so we went and bought the forks, and literally that contest was the one that kind of opened it up until Dean stole my thunder. No,
oh my gosh.
No,
Wait
Joe,
a second.
That was for you, Joe. That was entirely for you.
Wow. That's an awesome story.
That's pretty amazing. Wow.
Yeah, so I still owe it to my
What
brother.
did you guys eat? Do you remember what you were eating?
It was the kind of thing. Top ramen was like, we probably had a whole bunch of top ramen. It was all the food that you just would kind of let sit,
Yeah.
Maybe some rice and beans. But yeah, I mean, I don't remember it being a huge deal, but you're a kid, it's like, whatever, you kind of get by. And it was great because that, those kinds of things, like great to hear the Oakley story. Like, who would have guessed that a scratch pair of Oakleys would have turned, opened the doors for you?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like, and then the next contest is like when you got like, sponsored and all that. That was like, for me, my senior year in college. So we're talking about getting last in the X Games. That was my junior year in college. So I'm like, I have one more year to make this thing work. My parents are like, when are you gonna get a job? You got to get a job. So I was going to job fairs, suit and tie, ready to do it. And then like April of my senior year, so I was getting ready to graduate like a month later, I won the X Games trials, and I was sponsored by GT at the time. So they had win match in the contract. So it was like double prize money for me, right? First place. Right. And that was like amazing. So then I remember being on the phone with my mom, and like I was ready to get a job, and like I made it like just in the nick of time. And I'm like, Mom, I just won this contest. I'm calling from Louisville. And she's like, oh, that's great and everything. How's the job hunt going? I'm like, no, Mom, I just won like $11,000. She's like, oh, that's great, but like, how's the job hunt going? And then about 5 minutes later, she goes, wait, did you say 1,100 or 11,000? I'm like, 11,000, like, because the two contests before that, I got like 4th place, and I won like 1,100 without the match and stuff, right? So, they were used to me getting like 1,100. I'm like, no, this is like, let's just see where this thing goes. So I made it like just in the nick of time, and then, I was like sponsored by GT and stuff. So it was like, just like, it was so close to not happening,
Well, funny story for me is that once I got on that team, once I had that call from Bob, and I did some shows and I signed my first contract, it was $100 a month. That was my salary. And then I got contingency for being in the magazines, and then I got paid per show. And literally I was renting a room at a house. So I was already moved out. I was living on like probably $300 or $400 a month. Like, and it was enough for me to just quit my job. And I remember going in to talk to my manager. I was at this beer factory, and they had just given me a raise, like 15 cents. So I was making like maybe $3.45 an hour, right? That was my salary. And then I was going to school and getting some student aid. And I basically said, I'm going to go do bike shows. I'm putting in my 2 weeks notice. I'm going to do bike shows. And he's like, you going to join the circus? What are you going to do? And I'm like, well, now looking back, kind of. If you think about Wilkerson and Brian, that's quite the circus. But yeah, so that was a really interesting conversation. My mom always supported me in making those decisions. So like, just follow your heart. So now I'm on the summer '85. Haro just like threw me in. I was on tour, Ron and Brian, you know, which I were like, these are superstars in my book. Like Brian, as far as watching him in the King of Skate Parks, and Ron, just everything that he's done with 2 Hip, and like, yeah, and he just got on Haro. And so my mom sent me off like, all right, we'll see you in 3 months. You know, this is really exciting and I'm so proud of you. And we hit a deer. We went through California, Washington, Oregon, then we were going to Colorado. And through the Rocky Mountains, John Peterson, our announcer, was driving and he hit a deer, and we basically totally smashed the whole van. So I called my mom the next day. I'm like, hey, Mom, yeah, things are going great, but I just wanted to let you know, like, we ran into a deer and it was kind of gnarly. We were stuck on the side of the road before cell phones, obviously. So we had to like flag people down. And she stopped me and she said, wait, what do you mean? You hit a deer? What do you mean you hit a deer? Well, you know, we were driving with the van and the trailer. And she's like, wait, David, you're driving around the country? I thought you were flying. So my mom had this vision that I got on this team and I was like this rock star being flown to all the different shows. Right. And still to this day, she still calls that freestyle. Like, she's like, no, I don't remember that. And I specifically remember. So we'll have to have my mom one day on this call, because that would be
it's funny how like people think when you're sponsored, like it's legit. Like I literally, when I refinanced my house one time, I literally got the house refinanced because I was sponsored, because I had just incorporated my business. And so it was like a new business to them, and they wouldn't count like any of that. And,
right.
And I never told them anything. I rode bikes because I didn't want them to think anything. I'm like, no, I'm a motivational speaker or whatever. And so I'm on the phone with like the underwriter at Wells Fargo, and she's like, oh, you're the bike guy. And I'm like, oh crap. She found me out. She's like, well, do you have any sponsors? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, how long you been sponsored? I'm like, well, I've ridden for, Dance Comp since like 2001 or whatever. She's like, oh, I'll count that as 10 years of employment. Okay, you got the loan. I'm like, okay, great. If they only knew like it's a BMX sponsorship, like it's not all like glitz and glamour, but hey, it worked for them,
whatever it takes. Right.
So
that's cool.
Yeah. And then there was a time when 2 Hip was gonna sponsor, or Koji Craft went on tour with 2 Hip, and Ron was trying to get me to ride for 2 Hip, and I'm like, I knew like I'm not sleeping on couches. And so Koji came to my house, and my dad's like, expecting like this nice whatever, and like that 2 Hip van rolls up with like the logo on the side, like that guy's face, or the face. Yeah. And my dad's like, and Koji gets to the van, and my dad looks at me, he's like, is he gonna be okay? Because Koji was like 4 years younger than me, so I think he was probably like 17 at the time or something crazy, like, oh, I don't know.
And he had some reason for concern. I mean, I did a 2 Hip tour, and coming up when the whole sport basically died in '89, and then Ron did one more '88, and then Ron did one more tour with us, Brian and I, in '89, and boy, was that difference. The per diem that we got versus the company credit card, right?
Yeah.
We never slept on couches. We still had hotels, but it was more the Motel 6 rather than the Radisson or the Hiltons,
Yeah.
Okay, I have one more funny story. I'm sorry, guys. I've been talking a lot, but these you keep bringing up other memories. So we were in New Jersey, and whenever this is on a Haro tour, I think it was probably like '88, and Spike was there with us, and we'd always save up our money when we'd be in like a place like New York, where we'd be there for a few days, and we'd get a really nice hotel, like at a Hilton or something. So we kind of budget, because Howard did have us on a certain budget, but it was not, we had some flexibility. So we're in the Hilton, and we had the van parked underneath in this parking garage, and we had to take the elevator up. So we had our skateboards and our gear, and Spike is with us, and he's like, hey, you guys know this elevator trick? And we're like, no, Spike, what are you talking about? And he takes the elevator, and he stops the elevator right as it comes up to the lobby floor, like halfway. And it's actually in the movie that he did, Being John Malkovich. Have you guys seen that movie?
Yes.
Okay.
It's in there, the old guy with the cane, and he sticks it in there to stop at the 9.5 floor. When I saw that movie, I was like, oh my gosh, Spike, that totally brought back this memory. Okay, so here we are. We're all got our gear and our skateboards, and we're dressed in the 80s style clothing in the Hilton, right? Everyone else is in like full like suits and super nice clothing. And Spike stops it. And what happens is, if you just open the elevator, it has to be the ones that open in the middle, and don't hit the stop, alarms don't go off. You open it up, and then you reach in, and there's a little lever you can reach to open up the next doors that are on the floor. So we did that. We opened it up, and we all climbed out, right? And the people that were waiting for the elevator, they're all like looking at us, and we're like, hey, it's all up to you. I mean, it's your call, but I'm glad we got out of there. And we just like totally played it off. It was like the best ever. I'll never forget that.
We were doing shows at the Meadowlands Fair, like in New York, New Jersey.
Yeah.
And the shows were at night. It was like 6, 8, and 10 for like 2 weeks straight. And so I had like a nocturnal schedule then. And so we would do the shows, and sometimes you'd go into New York City all night, and then you sleep during the day. Well, somehow like it was like the Goot and some skaters and stuff. They like, I don't know, someone met some girls, and they invited us to some party out in New Jersey on a lake. Well, we went there, and then we're like, this party's lame, let's get out of here. So we stole the keg, and we brought the keg back to the Hampton Inn. And like, it's, probably like Tuesday morning, like, I don't know, probably about 7:30 in the morning. We're rolling into the lobby with the keg. All these people are dressed up in their suit and tie, getting ready to go to work in New York. And we're like, nothing to see here, guys. We're just bringing a keg up to the hotel at 7:30 in the morning.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in again to another Tight 20. I'm getting through I got through all the other episodes, and now I'm going back, picking some stuff from the Matt Wilhelm conversation. When it first happened, I was so stoked because the Gumby vendetta came up, and I haven't gotten back to it since. So yeah, we harvested this from a conversation we had back in April. Tell us what you like.